Hey guys, in this week's Casually Criterion episode, we are going to review Arsenic and Old Lace. But before that, we are talking about Air. The movie Air, not Air. Figured that was obvious, but anyway, join us!
Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me as always is Mike. Before I ask you how you're doing, I want to know what is your favorite stage adaptation into film? That was harder to say than you think. Mike, what is it? And then also tell me how you're doing.
Oh, well, first off, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Good, glad to hear it.
And just to clarify, you're talking about what is my favorite stage adaptation of a play into a movie, correct?
Yes.
All right, cool. Okay, so I would say my favorite play adapted into a movie is something where I've never actually seen the play itself, so I don't know how it actually works as a play. But I am quite fond of a film called Night of the Iguana.
Whoa.
Oh. Not
which
the one
is
I thought
by
you were gonna
Tennessee
choose.
Williams, and it stars Richard Burton.
Nice.
And it's a cool little movie. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I don't know if I would still love it the same way I did, but I used to be really fond of that movie. So
Yeah, I remember. I mean, you made me watch it, or recommended strongly.
yeah, I was like, I don't know if I made you is a strong word.
It is. It's a shorter word than recommended strongly.
More like you saw how cool I was and you wanted a piece of that.
Yeah. That's it. But I remember liking it as well.
Yeah.
Also with us, you've already heard him. I forgot to introduce him. Justin, what is your favorite stage adaptation, and how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing quite well, and the one that I thought Mike was going to pick, so I actually had a couple options because I thought he was going to pick this one, but since he didn't, I'm going to go for it. But I thought, Mike, you were going to pick Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Yep.
Oh,
that's what I was thinking.
Which is a great one and one of my all-time favorite movies.
Also a Richard Burton joint.
Yeah. Similarly, I have not actually seen the play. I did see a scene done from it one time by high school students. But
playing like middle-aged alcoholics.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. That's a whole other story, but
it sounds like something from a Wes Anderson film.
It does. It does. It's like Jason Schwartzman's plays about like Vietnam for like a high school production.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in that same vein.
It'd be great to see like a bunch of third graders adapt Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Yeah. Or I say an Arrested Development when they put on the play that the warden wrote with the kids. Anyways, Chris, what is yours?
Man, there is a bunch. I pulled up a list and kind of like you forget what's been adapted. Like A Few Good Men is really good, but you forget that it was a play first, like type of thing, or at least I do.
Right.
Incendies from what's his name? Denis Villeneuve was a play, but my favorite, I think. Oh man, there's so many. I'm gonna go with Noises Off. With Christopher Reeve and Michael Caine. Is Michael Caine in that one? I think so.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. Anyways, that's just it's a great play to watch. But then the movie is so great, and it does things. It's just so well done. Put it in the Criterion Collection so that we can watch it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I always gravitate towards the older ones when I start thinking, but there are a lot of like modern ones. Like if I had to choose a modern one, it'd probably be Doubt.
Yeah. Closer is a good one.
Yeah. Doubt's still pretty old now, though.
Yeah,
That's
at this
true.
point.
That's true, but my mind goes to things like 12 Angry Men and His Girl Friday and
Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is probably the newest one of this list, at least.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
Anywho.
All right. Well, if this is your first time listening, this is a Casually Criterion episode, which we like to do every other episode, where we review a film from the Criterion Collection that is voted on by the listeners via our Twitter page. Before we get into the main review, we'll do our usual News on the March, where we talk about what we've been watching or reading or whatever, usually watching. So if you haven't seen the movie, you could still listen. Then we move into the Casually Criterion review for Arsenic and Old Lace, spine number 1153.
It's a big one.
Yeah, it's not very impressive when you realize we don't do it in order and we jump around.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I would guess this is maybe our, I don't know, probably somewhere around our 150th Criterion film, maybe?
Maybe.
Something like that.
We've
done a lot, but not...
I mean, we've been doing this for almost 5 years now. This is either our fifth year or we're in our, it's been a while.
Something like that. But anyways,
yeah.
As Mike said, we put the Criterion films up on a poll for the listener to choose which movie we're doing on our next Criterion episode. So follow us on Twitter at Casual Cinecast to vote in those polls. You can message us on there too if you have any questions or film suggestions, whatever. You can also email us at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And then, of course, let us know if you like the podcast. Rate us, review us on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on.
Please and thank you. Okay, I think that's the end of this section, so let's move on. News on the March.
All right. All right, so we're here in News on the March, and Mike and Chris, you guys are going to talk about something that I haven't seen, and to be honest, wasn't very high on my list of things to see, just because it didn't really grab me or intrigue me. So I'll kick it off to you guys to talk about this, and that, of course, is the movie Air, about Nike and Michael Jordan or something. My question to you guys is this movie good? Because I'm skeptical.
What a hardball question.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Chris?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Chris.
It is good. End of segment.
Nice. All right. Moving on.
Yeah, done with this part of the thing. No, I would agree. I would say this movie is good, not great.
Yeah.
Not exceptional. Like, I doubt it'll be on my top 10. If I had to make a top 10 of the year, like now, it would. But in a few months, I'm hoping it won't be. But it is more good than bad, and I'd definitely recommend it.
I think it's worth watching for sure.
Yeah, it's got a really great performance by Matt Damon.
Jason Bateman.
Ben Affleck is pretty good here. He directs this movie. It's a return to him directing good movies, which is nice. I think he had that one bad movie he directed. What's it called?
The night.
What was it about?
They live by night.
Yeah, there you go. That's the one. I don't know what it's about. I never saw it, but I just heard it was bad, so I might like it. Who knows?
I read the book, but I never saw the movie.
I don't know. I see. Generally, I like what Matt Damon, Ben Affleck does behind the camera. But I would say I like this one better than Argo, but not as good as Gone Baby Gone or The Town.
Sure,
Okay.
but Gone Baby Gone wasn't directed by
Oh, it wasn't? No, that was
David
who was that
Fincher.
directed by?
David Fincher.
No, that's Gone
that's
Girl.
Gone Girl.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
Gone-
I got that all mixed up. It's too many Gones in Ben Affleck's resume.
Yeah, no, he directed
Yeah, you're right.
Gone Baby Gone. He's in Gone Girl, which is probably
Yeah.
the confusion or part of it anyways.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, but anyways, I don't know. This is, I don't know. My girlfriend didn't, I think she thought it was okay, but she didn't super like it and super didn't want to see it. And I wasn't looking forward to it really, but I don't know. I think something about the whole idea of celebrating businesses being good at capitalism is something that she's not really like excited about, which I completely understand.
Sure, there is like a kind of a weird advertisement thing because it's all about Nike, so you're like kind of feel weird about it. But then I was like, man, I just watched a Dungeons and Dragons movie, so I can't really be that upset about Air.
Dungeons and Dragons is way better than this movie, in my opinion. The Honor Among Thieves one, not the Jeremy Irons one from 2001 or whatever. But I don't know. Here's the thing. I think everyone likes to watch people who are good at their jobs do their jobs. Like, I think that's just something that people like in movies, right? I think that's fair to say.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm sure you could think of
that's
exceptions.
what this is.
But,
Yeah. I mean, there's some good dialogue here, some good performances. It's kind of weird that, like, the whole movie, and I don't think this is a spoiler, the whole movie kind of, like, cuts around wherever Michael Jordan is.
Sure, we don't ever see him except for in, like, real-life clips.
Or, like, wide shots, and you see, like, his back or him getting out of a car from a distance or something like that, and then it'll cut to, like, Viola Davis, who plays his mom.
Really
and she'll
good.
do the talking.
Yeah.
You know? So it feels a little, like, hamstrung by that. But I don't know that's like the worst option between, like, having someone play Michael Jordan.
Yeah, it's tough. I think I'm really close there with you. But this is the type of movie that we always complain about biopics. This is what we want instead of a biopic. You know, like,
oh, for sure.
You know, like, it's about Michael Jordan, but it's not really.
It's about the legacy of Michael Jordan, kind of.
And then, so it's like about a smaller event as opposed to a whole life. You know, like, so this is kind of what we want from it. I do think when they lean really hard into the, like, we're gonna call the shoe Air Jordan. You know, like, that's when I'm like, I don't know, they kind of lean into that really heavily, and it's kind of like the same feeling I get when Solo, he's like, you can call me Solo, you know, like,
he never says that in the movie.
No, in Solo he did. What did he say? He's like, my name
He
is...
never says, you can call me Solo.
the person he's talking to says, "Oh, you're by yourself. We'll call you
it's
Solo."
even worse in the movie than that.
Yeah. Anyways, but, like, those are the parts where I'm kind of like, that's what holds it back for me.
Yeah.
But I think it is worthwhile. You know, Jason Bateman, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck are all really good in this movie. Chris Tucker, in a very toned down performance from what I expect from Chris Tucker, you know?
Okay. I'm listening.
Yeah. I actually think I would recommend this to you, Justin. Like, I think, I mean, we'll see. But, like, I think you would enjoy it because it's not enough. It's not in the biopic territory, I don't think, which I was kind of afraid it was. I think it leans into some of the things oftentimes where it feels like it could almost leans too far into the biopic territory. But yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of in the territory of film that I have a tough time getting interested in that. And I'm sure this movie is better than this example I'm about to use, but, like, it's kind of like when I hear that they're making, like, a Tetris movie and it's about the founding of Tetris, and it's like, I don't know, that's just like the founding of something like that. And maybe it ties into what you said, Mike, about, you know, people are being good at capitalism or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just like the invention of a shoe.
I think there's more to it than that.
Well, it's more about, like, what we all know to be inevitable, right? Which is that, like, Air Jordans are huge to this day.
Sure.
It's more like interesting to see them, like, in a world before that existed, and them taking big gambles and, like, it all feels inevitable, right? Like, there's a line in the movie, I think, where Matt Damon, like, once Michael, like, it's like, I don't think this is a spoiler, but, like, there's a point where, like, when he has a hunch about Michael Jordan before Michael Jordan's huge.
Right.
Right? And then once Michael Jordan hits big, someone's like, I always liked Michael Jordan. And then Matt Damon's kind of like, everyone knew, and kind of, like, laughs to himself, you know? But, so, like, it seems inevitable to us. Like, yeah, okay, obviously you would want to do this. Like, make this brand and all that stuff, because it's, like, such a fashion statement for so many people. And now, even to this day, after Michael Jordan's long gone,
yeah,
from the sport, not from the world. But, you know, I don't know. It's one of those things where it feels a little corny whenever they say something like, I have a title, Air Jordan. But also, equally, how else? I mean, you got to put that scene in there if you're telling the story of how the brand of Air Jordan came to be.
Yeah,
I don't
somebody
know.
suggested the name at some point, right?
Yeah, like, it came from somewhere.
I mean, I guess it could be done in a different way. I don't know. Maybe I'm making a complaint.
I don't think it would be much better to have, like, a boardroom full of, like, 12 randos spitballing names for the thing and then them voting on it. and focus testing it.
I do think the other thing that's interesting about this movie is Viola Davis, who plays Michael Jordan's mom, is like kind of fighting for him to get a percentage of the sales, which isn't really, it's in his name, it's Jordan. So like, it's not a far reach, but I know Matt Damon and Ben Affleck recently started a new, production company, I believe, where everybody shares in the profits. So if you work on that movie, everybody's going to get a piece of the pie. So I feel like this movie kind of goes hand in hand with the beginning of this production company. I think this may be the first movie that they made in that company.
It is.
So I do think that that's interesting and a good, I don't know, it's a good tie in there. So yeah, I like it. I think it's worth watching.
Yeah, it's
Agreed.
like a different model of things, and that's kind of made me curious to watch like the progress of the film as a film,
Yeah.
and see what it does. I've just had a really hard time convincing myself to get, but you guys are selling it pretty well, I think, and I enjoyed The Last Stand. Chris, you and I talked about it for a whole episode when Mike was gone. And we talked about how much we enjoyed that. So,
you
could kind of tie into that.
I think that this works as a peripheral because Michael Jordan is not in this very much. But it definitely is talking about his career. Where it's more about his mom kind of arguing for him. And it's more about it's about Matt Damon making a bet. But anyways, it's good.
And
it's
I could have said this. I would have said the exact same thing, or had the exact same lack of interest when I heard about a Facebook movie being made or a movie being made about the invention of Facebook. Like,
Sure.
okay,
and that's a good movie. It's a great movie. I also Blackberry is also, I have the same reaction to it where I'm like, I don't really want to watch this, but I've heard from a lot of people that it's actually pretty good. So I guess I'll probably watch it when it comes out.
And to touch on what you mentioned earlier, you brought up Tetris. That movie is about the guy who created Tetris. But I think the interesting thing about that is that person lived in the Soviet Union, or what was then the Soviet Union at the time.
Yeah.
Which did not trade with other countries at all. So a lot of that movie is not even really about Tetris. It's about dudes traveling to and from the Soviet Union and trying to work out the international rights to sell it. And then they find out that like everything being sold in Japan and North America is basically bootleg and illegal, but they've already been doing it for years. And
Gotcha.
So it's kind of more about that. So I don't know. It's like I'm not as good as this, obviously, but it's kind of like Glenn Ross, like people doing their jobs,
Right.
And for them, it's life and death. But for us, it's just watching someone stress about their job.
I hear Tetris is almost like a spy movie, but
Yeah, kind of, a little bit. So anyways, Air. Recommend, but I didn't love it.
yeah, it's a good watch. I think it's good sit or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Maybe do both.
Yeah, watch
Make
it
it
and
stand
sit while you watch it.
You could stand and watch. That's an option. But
Yeah, not recommended, though.
I mean, if you're going to stand, you might as well like get on an elliptical machine or something and exercise while you're watching it.
There you go.
it's true.
All good ideas. All right.
Okay.
All right, so I think that's it. Short news on the march today, unless anyone wants to spring anything on us right now. Guys, anything?
No, I think we're good.
Everything I've watched has been old news by years now,
Yeah.
so probably
Same.
not worth talking about.
All right, then. So here we go. Moving into our Casually Criterion review for Arsenic and Old Lace, starting now.
can't. I won't. I can't go through with it. I won't marry you, and that's that. Look, don't you see, dear? Marriage, it's a superstition. It's old-fashioned. Oh. Now, Mr. Brewster. Now, look, don't you... Goodbye, dear. But there's a body in the window seat.
Yes, dear. We know.
All right, so as always with our Criterion films, we will not be doing our usual spoiler-free section up front that we do for our newer films, because these films have typically been out for a long time. This one has been out for decades and decades in particular. So
Like 80 years.
yeah,
Almost.
a long time. So consider this your spoiler warning for this discussion of Arsenic and Old Lace. If you have not seen the movie, now is your chance to pause the podcast, because we're going to start spoiling things potentially now.
All right. So, Arsenic and Old Lace was directed by Frank Capra. It stars Cary Grant, Priscilla Lane, Raymond Massey, Peter Lorre, and Josephine Hull. Oh, and Jean Adair. And John Alexander. Good Lord. Okay. I kept thinking I was approaching the last name.
Yeah, I had a hard time deciding where to cut the list off, because all these people are important and have a lot
That's true. All
of
big
screen time.
characters. Yeah. All right. The IMDb synopsis says, a Brooklyn writer of books on the futility of marriage risks his reputation when he decides to tie the knot. Things get even more complicated when he learns on his wedding day that his beloved maiden aunts are habitual murderers.
Yep.
So, in a nutshell,
Yep. That is what this movie is about.
Mm-hmm. And
I think this is Mike's long-awaited Arsenic and Old Lace episode. So he's chosen Arsenic and Old Lace several times, and it finally won. So, Mike, why don't you go first?
yeah,
I don't know about several
Well,
times.
a couple times at least.
Yeah.
At least
I've
twice.
tried over the years to squeeze this one in since it got added. Okay, yeah, so Arsenic and Old Lace is a film that I first saw, I want to say, circa 2007. I was working at Blockbuster, and it was recommended to me by a regular who came in frequently. And anyway, she said this was one of her favorite movies, and it was hilarious, and we didn't have it at the Blockbuster store, so I got on what was, at the time, Netflix, and ordered a DVD through the mail and had it delivered to me.
so quaint.
And yeah, I watched it and thought it was very unique, very funny, very charming, very quirky, and in a way that I didn't at the time realize that old movies could be. It's kind of a screwball comedy. It was my first experience with like over the top silly Cary Grant.
The best Cary Grant.
Right.
Yeah, and I think he's just wonderful in this movie. I think it's one of the great comedic performances that stands the test of time. I think that, you know, he's when he's in screwball comedy mode, I think he's often great, you know? His Girl Friday, Bringing Up Baby. But I think this one holds a special place in my heart because it was the first time that he was on my radar, I guess. Also, I think this movie has a fun blend of like dark horror comedy.
Yes.
It's not particularly scary, but they play it straight for several minutes at a time, often where like they don't even try to make you laugh. And the music is dark, and they're talking about murdering people all the time, and there's characters talking about choking someone. It's just kind of dark. But then something really ridiculous will happen, and you'll laugh at the morbid humor. And I don't know, it's just got a cast of memorable characters. Some work better than others. I will say I didn't love it this time as much as I did when I first saw it, but only marginally. I think it's still pretty great. And just great cast all around. Everything comes back around. It's a very tight script. I would love to see a play of it one day.
Oh boy.
Like on stage. Like I think it would be a lot of fun. But also, I don't know. I don't know if I would picture anyone else as Mortimer Brewster,
Great name.
Yeah, Mortimer Brewster. Mm-hmm. It is a great name. So anyways, I'll keep it there just to say that I'm glad I finally got to watch this again. I'm glad we're talking about it. It's great. If you don't know who Cary Grant is, I think this is a great place to start, along with those movies I mentioned previously, if you like old school screwball comedies. So, Justin, what do you think about this movie?
Well, before that, I just want to say if you are a person who digs old school screwball comedies, but also don't know who Cary Grant is, I want to know what movies you're watching. Because these are all kind of the gateway into that, and like maybe some of like the most, the most popular ones that you would discover first, right? Before you would really go down a rabbit hole into other ones. Not to say that there aren't any good ones, because you could be watching, not all about Eve.
Yeah,
Great
Lady screwball Eve. Comedy that one.
The Lady Eve and other things, that don't have Cary Grant in them. But this just feels like what you would come across first. And I'd be curious about that journey that doesn't.
Preston Sturges too, but yes.
I was about to say you could do some Preston Sturges.
I said the Lady Eve. That is Preston.
Yeah. You said that.
That's
Sturges.
True. I was thinking of Sullivan's Travels and Unfaithfully Yours, but I don't know if Unfaithfully Yours really counts as a screwball comedy, but maybe it does.
I don't know. It's funny, and it's my favorite.
Funny.
It's far and away my favorite Preston Sturges movie.
Yeah.
But that's a discussion for another day.
Yes.
Because today we're talking about Arsenic and Old Lace.
That's true.
So this is, I think, my third or fourth time seeing this movie. The first time was based on your recommendation, Mike, after saying you saying that you loved it. And this came later for me, and it's probably why I haven't always had the same level of affection that you've had for it, because this came after Bringing Up Baby, after His Girl Friday, after Charade for me. And while I've always really enjoyed this and found it funny, I've always enjoyed the more rom-com screwball comedies with Cary Grant, just a little bit more. And like this one has the rom, but it's just like a side note. It's like a C story almost.
They've already had the rom-com.
There's like three things going on at once in this movie.
Yeah, and it's almost there in a way that I miss it, and I'm just kind of a sucker for that sort of thing. Like Bringing Up Baby is my favorite screwball comedy, and they're very similar performances, I think, from Cary Grant. So like all the ingredients are here. It just doesn't quite go there for me, but it's got other things on its mind, and I think that it's a great like spooky Halloween movie, and but like where everyone could enjoy it, and you're not gonna, like, if you don't like scary movies or something, or gory movies or whatever, this is really great for that, because it's so much fun. Like you could, like, I don't know, it's like in like Hocus Pocus or something in that sort of
yeah, I guess
that sort of vibe, or whatever. But I do think this, it's genuinely got some creepy moments and some stuff that maybe takes me out of just how silly and funny it is, just because it is so dark. And I find that fascinating about this movie. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
how they
juggling a
balance
lot.
it. Yeah. And it goes back and forth. And like there's a scene where they have Cary Grant tied up and they're talking about torturing him and debating on like how long to torture him. And it's just kind of unsettling when you really like take a step back and look at the context of like these two brothers that grew up together, that and I think the scary brother, Jonathan, which I do want to say just a great touch that the normal, like charming, handsome brother is named Mortimer.
Yeah.
And the creepy, scary, evil one is named Jonathan. It's kind of like just like a fun flip that works for me. But he's talking about when he tortured him as a kid and shoved like stuff up under his fingernails.
Yeah, that was creepy.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is not even funny anymore. It's just
no wonder he
just
writes books about not getting married.
Yeah,
he's got issues.
Yeah, but all the performances are really, really great. I find the ants delightful. Josephine Hull in general is just wonderful. Like maybe my favorite bit in the entire movie is her little trot she does to answer the door or go get something quickly. It's not quite a jog and it's not quite a walk. It's a bounce with her arms kind of like T-Rexed in front of her. And that just makes me laugh. I could watch her do that all day. Yeah, and I think the other thing that I want to touch on is like I like in this sort of movie these really obvious musical cues and score that come in throughout. Like there's a creepy version of like Here Comes the Bride when Cary Grant's wife shows up like later in the movie, like when scary stuff's happening. She like comes in the door and you have this kind of creepy Here Comes the Bride score going on, but there's a lot of those sort of like really fun on the nose musical moments that I paid a lot more attention to this time than I normally do, or than I did on other times, I guess. And yeah, funny movie. I like it. Chris?
Yeah, so this was actually my first time watching it, but not my first time watching. I have seen several versions of this play. And when I so if there's anybody listening to this that is like, sometimes the version of the play is not as good. So I was a little hesitant coming into this. And also I think it also has tempered my reaction to it. Does that make sense? Because I've kind of seen like worse versions, or I've seen it enough that it's old hat, or I don't know. What I'll say is I did enjoy it. Cary Grant is at his like most Jim Carrey, in this movie. Just facial expressions going crazy. I feel like when he's on screen, the movie is fabulous. But sometimes when he leaves, and that's, I guess, maybe when it gets a little bit more scary, or a little bit, it's not as funny when he leaves, when he's not on screen. That's right. It kind of drags a little bit for me. I think Peter Lorre kind of picks up the slack a little bit there. He's kind of funny, but ultimately, I think everything you guys have said is accurate. I just think that maybe because I have come to this movie in a roundabout way, I'm not as I'm not. I've already been through this enough times, and I've seen enough bad versions that this was never going to appeal to me, if that makes sense. And when I say bad versions, if there's people listening, I hope there's nobody listening. Anyways, I've seen versions that are not as good as this. Not bad versions, just not as good as this.
Yeah, and part of the fun of the movie is, or at least to me, was like that first time not knowing what it was about.
Sure.
And
yeah.
Going on the journey with Cary Grant.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know if it's diminished when you watch it again, but you lose some of that surprise.
Man, he has so much energy. Like if you don't have a Mortimer that like can carry the whole play like he does, like if you cast somebody that's just a little bit, if that's not as manic, like that's not as energetic. The whole play can drag, or in this case, the movie. But like if you watch a play and he's playing maybe a little bit more straight, it can really bring the whole thing down. Because
I just can't imagine why you would want to play it straight.
Well, yeah, I don't think when I've seen it, I don't think anybody's like, I'm going to play it straight, but they play it not as manic or not as over the top. And not that this
I think part of the greatness of this is watching Cary Grant slowly lose his mind and wonder if he's crazy or going to be crazy soon.
Right.
Because his entire family seems to be insane.
And it's really well done in this. There's like an arc, where he's slowly going insane and he's kind of slowly losing his mind. And sometimes in the play version of it, it kind of just skips to that, or he's already at that at the beginning, where in the movie, it's really well done as far as like, he starts off, he's perfectly normal, and then he works his way to insane. So I just think that in my mind, this movie's good, but in my mind, it's so meshed in with everything else, it's hard for me to see it unbiased or separate it from the plays that I've seen.
Yeah.
But I like it. I enjoyed it. I'm glad that we finally got to watch it.
I think if there's one character in this whole movie that does not work for me, almost anything they say, if I'm going to be critical of this movie that I like a lot, it's the cab driver.
Which is not in the play as much that I remember.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
I think it's kind of tragic that he gets the last line of the movie.
yeah.
Like, that bummed me out. I was like, oh, we ended with him? Versus what happened
it's so-
right before it that was much better.
Yeah, it's such a bizarre, like, nothing ending. But, like, even from, like, the first thing that I remember him doing, it's like the part whenever he's watching Mortimer and his wife kiss and be in love, and he thinks to himself, like, I wonder what Mary's doing. And it's like, who? We don't care about your life, dude. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know. It's such a clunky, strange thing. But in a story, in a script that otherwise I think handles exposition really well.
Sure.
Like, for example, like, everything comes back around. Everything has a purpose. Things that, yeah, there's sections of this movie that aren't funny, aren't even trying to be funny. But usually those sections inform something later that will pay off down the road in a funny way.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So I think in that way, I think it's a very tight script. But yeah, my biggest critique is that cab driver just does not work for me.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I understand why they added him, because, he's not in the plays at all. But
he's the audience surrogate in a way, to be like watching this crazy family and their antics throughout the evening. And
he's also, like, as Cary Grant runs back and forth from house to house, which also doesn't happen in the plays, you need, like, added pressure. So you need somebody bugging him as opposed to him just running from house to house. You need him like, oh, the taxi, remember the taxi?
Right.
You need an added
one more thing for him to juggle.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it is to me. I feel like Cary Grant is the audience surrogate, but...
Yeah, to a certain extent, yes. We all go crazy with him.
Yeah, sure. Maybe so. Maybe we lose that, but we're with him as he's like learning what his aunts are doing and discovering bodies. And well, I guess we're not, because we are aware that the bodies have been switched once, like after the Peter Lorre and his brother switched the bodies. We're in on that whole scene.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are things we know before he does. So maybe it's not an exact science.
He's the audience surrogate in the first scene when he first discovers what's going on. Wow, aunties, how could you do this? And and then once we know more than he does after that.
Yeah, I think one thing that has always felt off to me is the ants. Like, maybe there's just maybe a bit too much of like the sort of cutesy, like, well, of course we murdered him. He was lonely. And that sort of like sentiment happens many, many times throughout the movie. And like this sort of like, isn't it funny that there's like the sweetest old ladies talking about murdering people? And like it kind of rides that a bit too many times, I guess. For me, that at a certain point that loses its charm. It starts off great, but midway through I get kind of tired of that act. But that's just one of the places where like it kind of falls flat as the movie goes for me.
Yeah.
That's my criticism.
Would you prefer that they? I don't know. What would you prefer instead?
That's a good question.
Because I want you to answer, but because the way I see it is, yeah, at first it's a little like ha ha ha, and I don't necessarily think that you're supposed to keep laughing at it. I think that you're supposed to be taken aback, much like Cary Grant is, that they don't associate what they're doing as wrong, and based on their ongoing attitude, they never will. So that way, when the end of the movie comes around, and they want to go with Teddy to the Happy Hills Farm or whatever it is, you are squarely in Cary Grant's corner to be like, yes, they should do that. They should go there.
They should
That's
all
perfect.
go.
Yeah. Everyone in this family, except for Cary Grant and maybe him, should go to that place.
Sure.
And so I think it's more of like a... not necessarily supposed to keep you in stitches the whole time, but more to paint a picture of just how far gone this entire family really is.
Yeah. I think it's maybe twofold. So to answer your question, I think it's less about how it is the way they feel throughout the whole movie and about as much like the amount of time that we spend with them doing that when it maybe could be condensed. Because I think I'm with you that all the beats with it make sense to get us there. Except that I think the one thing that I struggle with is I guess understanding why later in the movie they just so freely tell the cops about it, and like why because they seem to talk about it very freely and very openly, how they've gotten to 13 without, or 12, I guess. I can't remember. I know they argue about whether it's 12 or 13 at one point, which is funny.
They did 12, and then the 13th body, I think, is Jonathan's body that he brought with him.
They're
Gotcha.
also kind of
Yeah, that's
casually
right.
racist. They're like, this foreigner, we can't bury him down here. He's a foreigner.
Yeah, that part
Yeah.
was funny to me.
Yeah. Or it's racist or just like anti-religious, or not anti-religious, like extremely religious, where they're like, well, we could bury we're not going to bury this person we don't know, I don't know. It felt like religious to me. Like, is they're probably not Christian, they assume, or something.
Right, or some kind of Protestant that they don't agree with.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we can't bury them down there.
Because they do kind of talk bad, but like, oh, he seems nice and for a Methodist or whatever. They make that at some
Right.
point. But anyways, they talk about it so freely and openly that it bothers me a bit sometimes when I'm like, I don't quite follow whenever they're just telling the cops, expecting that nothing will happen. I don't know. It's a weird thing to me.
I don't think that they've had occasion to talk about it before this. That's how they've gotten away with it
Yeah, I have a
before.
feeling that, like, in their eyes, like they said earlier, they're doing a charity.
Yeah, they're doing a
Right.
good thing.
So it's like, I don't even think they could tell you, like, I don't even think that they may even understand the extent of which this is illegal.
Yeah.
It's like, they're clearly, like, in their own world. Like, it's not just, like, them being
Well, they're like
dumb. It's like, yeah, it's like them being delusional.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't quite follow. I don't know. I don't quite follow your logic there. I mean, I understand the idea that maybe there's one too many beats where that happens, but them talking openly and freely to the cops about it, I think adds a lot of great tension and comedic beats, and makes sense with their attitude they've had the whole time, which is that they think they're doing a good Christian thing.
Yeah. I think also the thing that this movie does, and it does well, and maybe the thing that when I've seen it as a play that the plays don't do as well, is this is like His Girl Friday or Bringing Up Baby, where the dialogue needs to go really quick because there's so many jokes, and if the one joke doesn't land, we've moved on to the next one. And so maybe sometimes in this it's not quite as like well written as Bringing Up Baby, or we whereas the same things happen. They're just throwing so many jokes at the wall and seeing what sticks. Maybe they throw the same joke one too many times, but oftentimes the way I feel about it is they move on. So like if a joke doesn't land for me, they've already moved on by the time I'm like, I don't like this, or why did they do that? I'm like, I've already moved on to the next one, you know?
Yeah.
Well, sure. And also I think
true.
that's a remnant of it being an adaptation of a play,
Sure.
right? Where maybe not every screwball comedy that we've been talking about is an adaptation from a play. It's like primarily driven through dialogue, whereas like in the movie it might feel a little repetitive because we've seen it or we understand it, or like the blocking or the exposition
We haven't
hasn't
had
been
an
there the whole
intermission.
time. But if you're watching 5 people stand around on a stage, I think the story being told through conversations like that.
Well, also, sometimes it's the reaction
sense.
of Cary Grant that is funny. So, like, they may say the same thing several times, but in a different way, and Cary Grant's reacting to it in a different way each time.
Right.
So that may also be... I don't know. I think you're not wrong, Justin. But also you're not right. And,
Yeah. Yeah. I agree that you're not right. I won't use wrong. That's a strong word for an opinion. But
Yeah, and it is a case of this is not the movie to get hung up on,
sure, little things, yeah.
like character motivations and logic.
Yeah.
Because we have a character who thinks they're Teddy Roosevelt and like has somehow gotten through life to this point. And if you start thinking, well, how did they get through life to this point? and not, that you're doing the wrong thing. So I also acknowledge that.
hey, man, insanity can spring its head at any time. It apparently gets stronger with age.
Didn't they try to get him to be George Washington or something, and it didn't work for them?
Didn't work for him. I think they said he didn't come out of his room for weeks or something.
Okay.
Like that. Yeah. So there is some fun meta-ness to this, right?
Yes.
Like I like those scenes because he is a dramatic critic, right? He's a playwright critic. So I enjoy those scenes where he's talking about dumb people in plays that don't realize that they're about to be, attacked from behind while he is about to be attacked from behind, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I also like how multiple characters throughout the movie want to approach him with like a script idea and they want his feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's just like,
that's maybe like the most modern thing that holds up really well is the like everybody's a writer
yep.
sort of bits. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to the point where like the cop is like, he's clearly been like tied up and is in trouble, and the cop's like, no, wait a minute. This is the perfect time. Now you have to listen to me.
Yeah. It's so
cop
stupid and
Basically
ridiculous.
loses his job over the whole thing. He's like been waiting for him for a couple of hours at this bar, and they're like, where is he? I don't know.
Yeah. Like if there's a place to get hung up on logic, it's a cop seeing someone tied up and gagged, but deciding to tell him the plot of his play instead of help
Just
him.
completely giving up on his job and pitching an idea.
I love Cary Grant's performance whenever he first opens the window seat and sees the body. But like he keeps opening the lid higher and higher, and with each time he like opens it a little bit and stops, like his face changes to more and more shocked.
There is something really great about Cary Grant and the progression that his face makes as he sees the truth, but it hasn't quite set in, and there's like 4 or 5 like moments where until it finally sets in. He's like where he's still questioning it, and he's like, and then he finally comes to it. Like there's the moment where they both him and his brother Jonathan run over to the window seat and sit on it, and he's like, wait a second, why did you run over? And he's like kind of trying to figure it out, and then finally He does, and those are the types of moments that, like, done wrong, can really drag out. But he's such an entertaining character, so charismatic that you're just drawn into it.
Yeah, that's maybe my favorite bit of like performance in the movie. Is that scene where it's without words, you watch him put it all together.
Yeah,
and look at it, and then look at each other.
I like the part when he's like sitting on the window seat, like, and he's still processing what he's seen, and his aunts come out and they're like, "Congratulations on being married," and they're just like throwing rice directly in his face from like like 1 foot away, and he's like not happy at all.
Yeah,
it's pretty great.
Yeah, that made me laugh. I also like the opening sort of but like the text that's on screen, whatever you call that,
narration.
It's not the narration, but or I don't know if you call it text narration, but when they talk about how they're in Brooklyn, and then it's like, meanwhile, back in the United States proper, across the river.
Oh yeah,
it's like Brooklyn is some,
pseudo United States.
Yeah, it doesn't count as the United States. It's some crappy place or something.
There's like a baseball joke later on too. Is something about like, it hasn't been the same ever since they won the pennant. Like I'm not sure exactly who they're, like either the Mets or the Dodgers or Yankees. Someone won the pennant, and
I would bet it'd be the Dodgers or
because Brooklyn Dodgers.
Mets is Brooklyn, yeah. But they don't like Brooklyn. I just like enjoy the even the film's low opinion of Brooklyn.
I enjoyed how he's just recently found out that his aunts killed a guy, and they're talking about taking like some little kid across the street to the movies or whatever, and they walk out of the room complaining that they don't want to see any more scary movies and how scary movies shouldn't be allowed to be made.
Yeah. It's just,
yeah.
It's just like this like subtle like old lady kind of humor, but meanwhile like something scarier could arguably be said to be going on in this house than whatever
murdering
I see in the
people.
movie.
Yeah.
Poisoning people. Yeah. I think the one thing that I always recalled from this movie, because there was probably a long time between my first watch and my second watch, like maybe more than a decade. And I always remembered the moment where Cary Grant finally charges up the stairs. Does the charge Teddy Roosevelt thing, and he gets to the top, and the Teddy Roosevelt character bursts out of his door.
Yeah, and just stares at him.
Just stares at him like as if he's just done the most insane thing he could possibly imagine.
Yeah, it's just like annoyance and being puzzled. Yeah, but like I like how he just doesn't say anything. It's just like a very serious like, huh?
Yeah, like I think that moment would not work not as well if he was like, "How dare you," or something, or like, "I say, sir," or if he said anything. It's just that look is perfect.
Yeah, I like how insulting blatantly like the cop is to like people. He's like, "Oh yeah, they must be pretty lowbrow."
It's like, yeah, they don't get it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the guy when Boris Karloff falls asleep, not actually.
Yeah, it's like how he calls him lowbrow.
Yeah. He doesn't get it.
Yeah, he's like, he wouldn't like it. Oh.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, all that to say, this is a movie that I do enjoy quite a bit, but it's an hour and 54 minutes, 50 something minutes.
Yeah.
I think there's a better hour 40 version of this movie,
Yeah, I
don't know what
agree.
you
I think
cut,
it could be
though.
tighter.
Well, if you cut the
I don't know
beginning
what
part,
you cut.
You have to add some exposition. I mean, if you go more like the play, and I don't remember exactly the play, but you're not going to have him running between the houses.
I think that all works. Maybe the beginning scene whenever he's in the line.
Which is kind of just establishing, and it's better established visually than telling you, "Oh, I just got married. This is who I am." I don't know, but you're right. It should be a little bit shorter. An hour and a half, hour 40 is the correct length for this type of movie.
I mean, I do think that the whole idea that he is not a man who's believed in marriage and has wrote books that marriage is a sham. I don't know that pays off quite as well, because the movie's not about that. And he's already made that decision to go against what he's like been his whole life up to that point.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that it pays off in a way of like, because they kind of set it up that what are people going to do when they find out that he gets married? You know, the
like someone
perpetual bachelor.
Yeah, like one of the cops or someone should have been like, "You got married? You?" Like, but we don't even get a payoff in that way, do we?
Or like if they assume he's lying,
Well,
you know, about something because he's said that he got married, and they're like, "You wouldn't get married," you know, and some sort of payoff like that feels lacking, and even the whole marriage thing feels sort of secondary, except for her showing up.
I think it works as one more thing for him to juggle, like the taxi cab guy, right? Like it's one more thing that's like pressing on him, being like, "Mortimer, why are you acting so strange?" And he has to keep it secret. I do love the scene though, where she's like, "Mortimer, there are bodies in the cellar," and he's just like freaking out. So he just like kisses her and like picks her up and runs out of the house, all while his mouth is on her mouth, so she can't.
Yeah,
so she can't get it out. Like that's pretty good.
That's a great bit of physical comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. It's not irrelevant, but I guess there are some things in like maybe that you could maybe tighten up by losing some of that talk. I think there's a scene when we first meet the aunts where they're talking to her father, and basically I think they know they're dating or something like that, but if I remember correctly, they're talking about like, you know, Mortimer's a good kid, and that he shouldn't be worried because he's like Mr. Bachelor, Mr. Anti-Marriage or something. That doesn't come back. I don't think her father comes back in any way.
Yeah, it feels like whenever they were like, "Let's adapt this into a movie," they were like, "Well, it's a movie. There are no rules for movies. We can just kind of add some extra stuff in there to make the story better," but it didn't really make it better.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think the stuff that was added, because, and you're right, the dad does all the work too. We don't need that first scene because all we need is the dad explaining, you know, like, oh, he shouldn't be getting married, you know, like he's written all these books. We don't need that first scene, you know, like explaining who he is. So I don't know.
Yeah, it could be tighter, and I totally get that. It's not so long that it's dreadful or anything like that. I mean,
sure,
you know, a lot happens, and it's packed full of jokes and bits and people being silly. So it's like entertaining for the most part. But you know, would it be better tighter? Probably, but I'm not. We're sort of being nitpicky, I think.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we have to criticize something.
Yeah, I don't think it's a perfect movie, so I mean that you could talk. There's stuff to talk about, and we should. Right. But
you know, I'm looking at the IMDb trivia right now, and it says that on stage Boris Karloff did play Jonathan Brewster, and he wanted to be in the movie but couldn't. So they have that kind of that ongoing gag.
I wonder if that was written meta for the movie, yeah, and just made it more meta.
Yeah, I think so. That's what it sounds like.
A Boris Karloff lookalike, or they're always calling him Boris Karloff, and then he gets really mad about it the whole time. I wonder, I can't remember in the play if they call him Boris Karloff or not. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I like. That's maybe his best bit that he has is like in terms of being funny, because otherwise the character's not very funny. It's just how offended he is that he looks like a movie monster or something.
Yeah, Frankenstein, right. Boris Karloff.
Everyone's like, where'd you get that face, Hollywood? And he just gets so mad about it.
Yeah.
Like unreasonably mad.
Yeah, to the point to where like it feels like a payoff at the end whenever he snaps and starts choking the cops.
Yeah. He's finally had enough. I like that Peter Lorre gets away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like the most ridiculous scene when he's like, "All right, about 40, talk with a German accent, pretending to be a doctor. Big eyes, bulgy eyes, got it." And then like he hangs up the phone and he's like, "Well, doctor, thanks a lot."
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but do we have anything else?
No, I'm good.
I don't think so.
All right, so Arsenic and Old Lace. It mostly held up for me. I still like it quite a bit. Yeah. Great little comedy. Stands the test of time in a lot of ways, and then in a lot of ways it doesn't. I, unlike Chris, would like to see a stage play of this because I haven't.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I wouldn't want a Mortimer Brewster that's emulating Cary Grant, but also I wouldn't want a Mortimer Brewster that is playing it straight for any amount of time.
Sure. Well, I think in the versions I've seen, it doesn't go as fast as the movie does. And I think that was the mistake, or as I recall, that's the mistake that they make. This play...
The plays?
Huh?
That's the mistake the plays
Yeah,
make?
the plays make. If you're doing the play, the dialogue just has to go tick, 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 tick. You have to just keep moving. And and if the dialogue starts to drag, it's not as fun. So
Yeah. Would this be a great play to be adapted by third graders? Or performed by third graders?
if they talk fast...
They shouldn't adapt it. Leave that to the teacher.
yeah.
Yeah. I would rather see the third graders do Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It was funny seeing high school students do it. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. But okay. We're done with Arsenic and Old Lace, so moving on to the poll to choose our next Criterion film. I don't know if we explained it earlier, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating, but we have a theme that we choose for each of these polls, and each of us is going to pick a movie based on that theme, and then we'll put it out there on our Twitter account at Casual Cinecast. So, Mike, tell them what the theme is this week.
All right, so the Cannes Film Festival just happened, and so we are choosing the theme of festival winners in the past. So any movie in the Criterion Collection that also won something at Cannes Film Festival.
In the Criterion Collection, Chris.
Ah, damn it.
Yeah, in it, not adjacent.
Not that someone once talked about while on a Criterion
Not that might be in there someday.
subscription service.
Well, there goes my 5 choices.
Yeah, start over. Okay, so who wants to kick us off?
Might as well go with Chris.
All right, Chris.
Ready to
Well,
put
that
him
means
in
I
the
get my
spotlight.
pick of whatever I want. I was hoping I could get it narrowed down a little bit, but I do think I'm going to go with... I'm going to go with Fellini's La Dolce Vita. We haven't done La Dolce Vita, and I haven't seen it in a while.
You and your long movies.
That's true. Very
okay.
episodic.
It's okay. I love La Dolce Vita. I'm down.
I think it was definitely my first Fellini film. So I've got a soft spot for it. I got to see this at the Angelica up there. So in the theater for the first time. So I hope this wins. It'd be good to see it again. What about you, Justin?
Well, that was an option that I thought about.
I figured.
So I have a couple of backups. I'm tempted to go with a very new movie that we did not fully review on the show.
Last year's movie?
Possibly, yes. Let me ask you a question, actually. Chris, did you see this movie yet? Or was it one that you had watched?
Well, it didn't play... Well, it played at Fantastic Fest when I was there. I just didn't stay for the last day because I had to get back to work. So there's kind of like this, not animosity, but like I didn't get to see it at Fantastic Fest, so I'm not necessarily rushing out to see it, I guess.
So you haven't seen it yet?
So I have not seen it, yes.
Okay. That kind of makes me want to pick it.
Well,
so I
you've
guess
talked
I will.
about it for so long, I
guess
feel
I
like
will.
it would be anticlimactic if you didn't.
Yeah, at this point, you have to pick it.
Yeah, I have to. Okay. Well, I know that. So this movie was on both mine and Mike's top 10 films of 2022 list. So we did discuss it briefly there, but we did not dive into like spoilers and all that stuff. So I think it warrants a full discussion. But that is Triangle of Sadness.
Nice. I bet this will win.
That's what I was about to say.
I know. That's one of the things, like, I was worried about picking
Dolce
such a
Vita's pretty
modern
big.
film, but Dolce Vita's big, and there are other big films that you could choose, Mike, if you choose to, for your third one.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Okay, so I am choosing a film that is not new. It is actually a film I've seen before, and I didn't dislike it, but I was probably too young to really like it as much as I think maybe I could now. And just recently, I watched another film by this director that I liked a whole lot, and I'm talking about Jane Campion.
Ooh.
and the film I saw recently was Power of the Dog, which I really, really enjoyed. And so the film that I want to dive back into is The Piano.
Yeah, that'd be really awesome.
That's a big one, too.
I watched it around the time that Power of the Dog came out because I hadn't seen it before.
Well, then you may have to watch it again, Chris. So that's what you get for watching movies, not with us.
Well, yeah.
I watched Triangle of Sadness again like a few months ago with my wife because she finally wanted to watch it for her first time. So
yeah, these are all winners for me, basically.
Yeah. Usually our picks are.
I've seen them all. Yeah.
Oh, that's true too.
So I'm not going to be watching anything new, but there's really no going wrong with these 3 picks, in my opinion.
They all make for good conversations. Most of the time, it's hard to pick a movie from the Criterion Collection that isn't at least interesting. Maybe that's why we chose to do a podcast about the Criterion Collection. I don't know.
Could be.
and then pivoted and did it half the time about the Criterion Collection. When you overlap Criterion films with films that also won at Cannes,
yes, it's
then
tough.
You're really narrowing down to like a really winning bunch of films. So no bad choices here.
Yeah.
For real. Okay. So again, those are Chris. What was yours?
Mine was La Dolce Vita.
All right. Mine was The Piano, and Justin's was Triangle of Sadness.
Yes. And with that, we're done with this episode, right?
I believe so.
All right. Well, thank you, listeners, so much for listening. Of course, as always, thanks Jake Wagner-Russell for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can go to soundcloud.com/bobscotch.
All right. Stay tuned to this feed. Subscribe, like, all that stuff. Our next episode will be... What is our next episode?
Elemental.
What did you say?
My dear Mike.
Did we decide that?
Oh, I thought you said that maybe it was a question. In our chat, you'd put that it was going to be Elemental. Or,
okay, well, yeah.
That's my suggestion.
If that lines up, then sure, Elemental.
Yeah, I mean,
that works for me.
I don't know if it came out this week or it comes out.
No, it's not out right now.
Not this week. This week
comes out this weekend.
No,
I don't think so.
It's next week.
So it can't be our next movie.
It can't be our next episode. We got to decide this on the fly here.
Oh.
Is it Pierre tax time? Or Pierre Ite, I should say.
Maybe.
What I've been trying to win.
What did come out this weekend?
Just kidding.
I wasn't too excited.
The Little Mermaid came out.
Oh, yeah. That's what
Fast X. Yeah, Elementals is not out. So
we should watch The Lure, the remake of the Little Mermaid movie that you should watch this weekend.
Is that a remake of it?
It's not really. Not of the Little Mermaid.
It's just about
I would say
if we're just doing random Little Mermaid adaptations, we should go Ponyo.
Oh, please.
Sure,
that'd be wonderful.
Either one. Actually, let's do Ponyo. I haven't ever seen that, so.
No, we're not going to do Ponyo. That has no relevance right now.
I don't know what we're going to do
here?
then.
Come on.
What are we doing?
TBD, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll do something.
Oh!
Yeah.
I'm going to submit that we do How to Blow Up a Pipeline. I've been really pushing for that hard.
Yeah.
Is that
I don't
out
even know what that
for
is.
everyone to watch?
Yeah, it's streaming. I think you might have to rent it, but yeah.
Okay, well maybe How to Blow Up a Pipeline.
Or Ponyo, who knows?
Yeah, or maybe Ponyo, but not really.
All
Have you seen
guys.
Ponyo, Chris?
I haven't.
I should watch it.
Yeah, I should just watch it anyways, yeah.
And honestly, it'd probably be a fun discussion to have. It's such a bizarre movie, but...
Yeah. Ponyo loves ham.
Yeah.
Now I will have to watch it.
Simplest way to put it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
We'll figure out something.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you stay tuned next week to discover with us what we are going to do, because we have no idea. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.